We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome this morning, this afternoon, depending where you're tuning in from. This is our latest installment of Ask Right and Good. If you are new to this series, this is a set of conversations that I have as the founder of Right and Good. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to myself.
What's going on there?
2 minutes. Too much technology. Okay.
Yeah, the ghost of Rebecca is coming back to haunt us.
This is what happens when it's live. No telling what can go on. But welcome, regardless if you're live or if you're watching the replay. If you're new, as I mentioned, this is a series of conversations. We've taken a little bit of a break. The last 2 months is like an early summer sabbatical, but we're back, and I'm so excited to have Loksan and Molly with Impact Consulting Hub. We're going to talk all about entrepreneurship in the social impact space today. But I just wanted to let you know a little bit about them. So the Impact Consulting Hub supports independent professionals in the fields of international development and social impact through training, networking opportunities, insights, and tools. I very much appreciate a introduction that I can understand. I think sometimes you go to websites and aren't quite sure what you're walking away with. So I love understanding that. But for everyone that's here today, feel free to comment and ask questions. And if we are able to tune in and answer those immediately, we will. If not, we'll watch it after the fact. And the recording of this will also be posted on my website and on LinkedIn. So I wanted to let you know that as well. So with all that being said, this is about a 20-minute conversation meant to be digestible. I'd love for the two of you to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about Impact Consulting Hub.
Okay, well, Molly first, of course.
Yeah, sure. So as we know, my name's Molly, and I am a fundraising and partnership development specialist. So I've been an independent consultant since, I think, 2019. I started as a Peace Corps volunteer. I have my mug. Sorry, the wrong way.
Perfect.
I started as a Peace Corps volunteer in Burkina Faso, and I was there for 3 years. And then I kind of realized that one of the most important things that social impact organizations need is funding. And I felt that there was a lot of potential to view international development and social impact through that lens. And so that's what I've been doing ever since.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Loksan, and I'm from the UK, and I've been an independent migration and diaspora specialist and consultant since 2013. So coming on to 9 years now. And we co-founded the Impact Consulting Hub because, I've been a consultant for quite a long time, an independent professional. So I do research work, policy work, training work, mainly for governments and intergovernmental organizations in the field of migration. And we started the IC Hub because, I've been a consultant for about 8 years. And a few years back, Molly was also interested in going freelance. And so we went through this process of, doing a bit of a business plan for Molly, working out how she could package her skills into consulting services to provide, to organizations, to NGOs, and then launched her as an independent consultant. And it went pretty well. In the first year, she was already doing really well. Much credit to her, but also, I think we found out that there was a bit of a knack to it.
There's a process. There's a way that you can learn how to do it. It doesn't always come down to being the best networker, the best skilled at business. I would not consider myself a natural entrepreneur at all, or a natural networker at all. But if you do have a process, you can make life a lot easier and actually get to where you want to go.
Exactly. And just very lastly on that, as you know, Rebecca, freelancing independent work, it has its ups, it has its downs, but overall for us, it's really worked as just a great framework within which to take control of your impact, your income, and your influence in your field of work, and to have the lifestyle that you want. So that's why we want to help others do that.
Wonderful. I appreciate just so many perspectives that you all share, and was so delighted when we got connected, I guess maybe it seems like about a year ago. I don't know. COVID's kind of blurred.
Yeah, through Gabriella, who I see is online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Shout out
Gabriella,
to Gabriella.
yeah, connecting
Channels.
everyone. Yeah.
Yes. But I appreciate, your dialogue, because I do not necessarily advise people on how to get into this space. Whereas you all help support that, and we can get into that more in a minute. But, because by nature of me working for myself, I have people asking questions about how I got into this space, especially with the lens of social impact and responsible business. I think it's so important, to what you said. There's appeals that are pretty common around, owning your freedom, owning your schedule, creating your own work environment. But also, I really resonate with what you said about you get to control your impact in that way as well. And especially if you are, turning your lens toward helping and supporting others through your consulting work, how important it is to also live by those values, right? What does it look like to support the businesses that you want to support, spend your money where you want to spend it, help others do the same, which is really valuable.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you talked about creating your business plan for, IC Hub. Can you talk about maybe some of the trials and tribulations you may have had, or has the community evolved over time? I think sometimes we miss the hard steps at the beginning and just see the cool outcome at the end. And I'd love to know if you guys have shifted your perspective or experimented in any way.
Do you mean like how the Impact Consulting Hub as a platform has evolved, or how our consulting businesses?
I guess a little bit of both. Starting primarily with IC Hub, though, I would love to understand if that's always been the way it is, or if that's shifted over time.
Sure. So I think we started it as really just we put the call out there to say that we wanted to get independent consultants together to help them in some way. So, it was very much putting a, Google form out there and getting some names together. And then we tried to do some questionnaires to find out what people wanted, what people needed, and so on. We had learned some things, like people tend to want to connect with other freelancers. They find that useful, and also because freelancing can be a bit isolating. And also, we just over the years have gotten so many people contact us saying, I'm thinking of going freelance, but don't really know where to start, or I've been doing it for a few years. So, how do I get to the next level? So that's why, progressively, it's just really evolved in terms of most of the first year was just putting out blog posts and having some meetups. So putting out blog posts about what we'd learned as freelancers, how to do it, how to start, how to get better. And then meeting connecting with other IC hubbers. And then we rolled out some online courses as well at the beginning of this year. And those have gone really well as well. It's just been another different way to have an impact on some people who are really committed to, either launching or accelerating their independent consulting businesses. So it's just kind of progressed like that. And, I don't know if Molly has anything to add, but certainly I don't know, it's kind of grown pretty progressively in terms of membership. So we actually just hit 800 members today. 800 members, so we're really happy to have brought a lot of people together, and we do get a lot of nice messages, and it's great to see the impact as well from the courses. Don't know if you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add on to that is basically Loksan said it all, but basically what I would say is that we did. I think since there's two of us and we've been kind of intentional about it, I think one pitfall that people often fall into when they start a new project or they start a new platform or something, it's like there's that initial excitement where you're just like, ooh, this is the best idea ever. I'm so excited. I'm willing to put in all this work. And then there's usually kind of the end point where you're kind of like getting, you get nostalgic and you're getting out of it. But there's that big part in the middle. That's the messy middle is what we call it, is where you don't really know what you're doing. And then you kind of lose that initial enthusiasm, but you still have committed to doing all this work. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like wondering, where is this going? People are responding to this. Like we had one article that got thousands of shares, and then we had other articles that we thought would be really good, and they got, just like under 100 views. So you're kind of like, oh, this isn't going exactly how, it's not going in a way that I thought it would be controllable. And so I think we've avoided a lot of the messy middle by being more strategic, and we've got Loksan, who's a real strategic thinker, and then the two of us kind of bouncing ideas off of like, how much effort do we want to put in this? What can we actually do realistically? What are people responding to? So we've kind of had like that give and take between ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think that we were lucky that we avoided, I think, the worst of the messy middle, but it's always there.
Sure. Well,
Right.
there's so many elements at play here. You're creating a community for others to have community. At the same time, you two are both your own little community in some ways. Like when I met you, I remember reflecting kind of how jealous I was that I didn't have like a right-hand person to, like get that feedback from. My partner would have no clue what I'm even asking if we just have such different lives in that way. So you have these like dynamics where you can get that intelligence and data from the community, from each other, test it out, and have that opportunity to be really strategic, like you shared along the way. But I also think it's so realistic, like you said, Molly, plan for it to be the opposite maybe of what you anticipated. Everything you think is a good idea doesn't always pan out to be that way. And the things you don't expect often surprise you, which is really, is something that's hard to strategize for at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
With your community members, I know a little bit about this, but I'd love for you to share. I know that you have kind of like some verticals that you've created in conversations that your community has really gravitated toward and found valuable. Can you talk about how and why you created those verticals and what some of the common questions are that people have that come to you?
What do you mean by verticals?
I'm just thinking like within the hub itself, like and I apologize that I'm not using the correct language here, within the network, how the network groups have, like food security and geography.
Oh yeah. Sure. So what we found is that freelancers like to connect with each other. Mm-hmm. They sometimes want to connect with others who are at a similar stage of their consulting journey. And at other times, they also find it useful to connect with others who do very similar work to them, who are in a similar field. And so partly because of all that, and partly because I feel we're just not brilliant at the kind of online networking component, we kind of have different ways, different spaces in which IC Hubbers can connect with other IC Hubbers. So we have a members directory, so people can voluntarily join that, view it, and connect with others kind of on a one-by-one basis based on whoever they find interesting. We have our Facebook group, which is a kind of pan IC Hubber group, freelancers from all fields, and they can ask questions about independent consulting in general. We have specific communities for our paid premium course workshop students. So we have our IC Hub incubator program. So new consultants can support each other and ask questions. And then we have our IC Hub accelerator program for, advanced consultants. So they can connect with each other that way. And then finally, we have the IC Hub specialized networks. So we have 3 of them at the moment. One for GIS professionals who make maps, one for food security, food systems professionals, and another for monitoring, evaluation, and learning specialists. They can all be found on impactconsultinghub.com/networks. They're just spaces for people who work in those specific areas so that they can ask questions, share resources, and we co-convene those with coordinators who kind of take the lead. We sort of try and support them and signpost IC Hubbers to the right network. So that's kind of how that's developed. And, they've gone differently. They've progressed differently. The monitoring, evaluation, learning network's got over 200 members already. And then the GIS consultants group is really kind of a smaller, intimate group of fellow mapping specialists who, have a lot of chit chat. So it's that's basically how it's gone so far.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for that vocabulary, the seasoned network, or the specialty network. I think I was intrigued when I learned that because This may just be my perception, but I'm very familiar with a lens from the United States and the vocabulary around this and the way our kind of like nonprofit community works. And a lot of the consultants in the social impact space start with the nonprofit community, but they're maybe it's just my audience. I don't have as much of an NGO lens and an international lens around some of my work. And so I loved when I saw those specialties, because to me that just spoke to the fact that you have a much more global reach, that are approaching problems that need those in a very different way than some of my communities are. Could you speak a little bit to, the diversity of your audience, like where people tend to gravitate from? Because I think that I know the United States and many of the attendees on this call have a lot to learn about what's happening outside of their own borders, and I appreciate that conversation that you bring.
Molly, as an American abroad?
Yeah, what does your audience look like? What questions are they having?
I would say, I mean, there's a chunk of Americans in the IC Hub, but I wouldn't say it's the majority by any means. No. It's probably
we've got people really from all over the world.
Yeah,
it's actually we don't really know. We don't kind of ask people to declare which country they're from, but just kind of anecdotally, we see a lot of people from Europe, from North America. That's also because of our own personal networks where we've lived and studied. But we've got a lot of people from a lot of independent consultants from across the African continent, across Asia, Pacific region. It's really, really, really diverse, which is kind of the strength as well. But it's really about independent professionals who work in this kind of common ecosystem where we don't kind of try and claim ownership over the term social impact or try and take the responsibility to define what that is. But anyone who's working normally in the non-profit space, so those working with international charities, national charities, intergovernmental organizations, but also people working with social enterprises and doing impact-driven things for the private sector as well. There tend to be some commonalities in how you get work, how you build for work, the kinds of relationships and networks that you develop, and so that's kind of why, the part of the raison d'etre of the IC Hub as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for speaking to that. I know that's something that I find myself still learning from the both of you, because it feels a little intimidating to tap into the quote international market. And that's just the biased lens that I have as an American, and saying everyone else outside of us, that feels intimidating. And I have so much I want to be humble about, approaching that the right way and not being the stereotypical American going out to solve the world's problems, right? So there's this delicate dance, I think. And I think that's amazing that your community brings all of those different perspectives, and that it's also not their identity when they are in the room. You're just having a smart conversation.
Yeah, and also, if people are based in the US, there's a lot of, international development organizations, NGOs, and so on based in the US, and so those are also the types of people that we have in the IC Hub.
Yeah. I do see a question in the chat from Gabriella. Thank you. She asks, what has your experience been with creating ambassadors for your network? You mentioned some of those earlier.
Yeah, well, we haven't done it yet. We've just we planned to do it, and then we got pretty busy. Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge doing this part-time while we do our consulting work. And as always, I think when you are doing anything entrepreneurial, there's always like so many different directions that you could potentially go at any one time. It can be difficult to know what to prioritize. We haven't fully prioritized that yet, but we will in the future. So watch that space.
Well, from a strategic conversation, this is something I am starting to finally wrap my head around. When you start a new effort like that, do you set metrics for like what's successful or what's not successful? How do you know how long to hold on to an idea before you kind of let it go if it's not working?
That's a good question.
Well, we did have a bit of a We did have a bit of a go or no go criteria for where we should be at after a year.
Okay.
I can't remember what it was though. But that's kind of how we generally approach things. It's like we try to set a bit of a criteria about what does success look like in 1 year, which can be, following, or it can be monetary, amount of revenues, etc. And then, because you don't want to have, it's as we said, there's always that excitement at the beginning of a project, and you want to know if you're on the right track or not, or if it's worth, we only have limited time, if it's worth using your limited time on that.
And you have a bit of the sunk cost fallacy as well of, I've done this for so long, or I've done this and I've put all this effort in, and now I want to hang on to it just because I've already done this. But I'm also a very emotional type of person. So if, let's say I had a good day, I'll be like, I'll do this forever. And then if I have a bad day, then I'm like, I'm quitting tomorrow, So I think you kind of want to I think it's good to have those goals and metrics, because it can kind of take the emotions out of it and help you to look at the long-term picture, where you're looking at that wider scope rather than doing it day by day and letting your emotions or letting your whatever kind of feelings guide you.
Yeah. And you mentioned feelings, but I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs really have to get used to when they start working for themselves, because it's kind of unnerving to have the freedom to make whatever the decision is, and someone's not telling you what your goals are, right? Like I said, I asked because I think that's something I'm still learning in my business. And also because of the pace that we have and how quickly we can pivot and be flexible compared to maybe if we formerly worked for someone or in-house for someone. There's a lot of different dynamics that you're having to navigate about managing yourself in addition to the actual work you're supporting for your clients. So a lot of leveling up that has to happen there, I think, for people when they first get started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I've so enjoyed our conversation. I love how active Gabriella has been. I wanted to also just comment on something she shared. She's totally right. She said that there's a bunch of resources out there for community builders as well. And I'm familiar with that, having the right and good community. It's not as formalized or robust as the IC Hubbers, but there's communities out there like Community Roundtable, Burb. I know that there are plenty of others. Those are just two I know that I reference frequently. But
I think you're right. In good community is really useful, and it's engaged. It's an engaged online community.
Yeah.
It's active, which is hard to.
Well, there's of joining and the element of leading, right? Those are kind of two different things. Thanks for the plug, though. All that being said, I know that we spoke a lot in particular about IC Hub today. So as we kind of wrap up, I want to make sure that you are able to share anything about your individual work as well. If someone wanted to get in touch with you to learn more about IC Hub or the work that you both do, how would they be able to do that?
Sure. So we'll leave the link to the IC Hub in. Actually, no. Can we actually do that? I don't think we can actually.
I think you can if you post. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I can't work out it.
It's in the wrap up.
Okay. Well, anyway, Molly will try to do that while I describe. Just go to impactconsultinghub.com, and if you just sign up to the mailing list on the the first form that you see, then we'll email you in a day or so to welcome you into the IC Hub, and then we'll try and direct you as well towards some completely free resources that should suit your situation. So if you're looking to, if you're just thinking about maybe doing some independent consulting in your field of work, then we have some resources for that. If you're literally in the process of starting up, we have resources for that. If you have been doing it for a few years and you want to do it better, then we also have resources for that. So it all starts by just signing up to the mailing list, and then we should direct you after that towards the right place. So impactconsultinghub.com. And I mean, we also have our own independent consulting businesses. Well, I won't confuse people with that, but people can connect with us on LinkedIn and see what we do individually, and migration, fundraising, and
that's the simple answer. And I also wanted to give one quick shout out to Ross in the chat. She's been part of the IC Hub for a while, and then she's
since the beginning.
Since the beginning, she was.
So is Gabriella. Gabriella's also, I think, one of the
also
original IC Hubbers.
Yeah.
Stuck with us, and I know that Ross was here in the is here in the UK, and she wanted to get to a French-speaking country, and it seems like she's achieved that because she says hi from Dakar. So,
cool.
Congratulations to Ross.
I appreciate the community turning out. I know, the community that I bring to these conversations is very curious about this topic just from the one-on-one talks that I've had. So I was so happy to be able to connect you both. And like Loksan mentioned, we won't confuse you with all of it, but I always like to point out when individuals have their own efforts too, because that's a hard part of your day and work that develops who you are. So check out Loksan and Molly on the LinkedIn event. If this is where you're watching the replay, they're both connected as speakers at the bottom. And then in the replay on my website, we'll have all of these links here as well so that you can see that. But thank you so much for joining us today. For everyone, we'll have another conversation in 2 weeks. We usually do this twice a month. Jillian Driscoll from Jillian Jean is joining us next week with a social impact perspective. But I know that so many of my members would be excited to learn about what you're doing. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.